The Raptors have 2 picks in this year's NBA draft at number 19 as well as number 31, and the odds of who's going to land at those draft picks have now been revealed, and it looks like, particularly with the Raptors' second round pick at number 31, this team could be getting a major steal in terms of where this guy is projected to get landed. So we're going to dive into those draft selections. Also take a look at Zach Edey, where he's going to go, because also looks like the Raptors are still in his range, and basically look at the Toronto Raptors, who could be the potentially most high upside guys for this Raptors group. So lots of stuff to dive into, but folks, you guys have been crushing it, hitting that like button lately. Again, been doing some tests. It really helps out the channel if you guys hit that like button. So it means the world to me if you enjoy the daily Toronto Raptors coverage to hit that like button. But let's dive into where the Toronto Raptors are selecting. As I mentioned, number 19 and 31. So we'll take a look at the first pick first and then dive into all these players after. But basically, the most likely guy, and the guy I've seen linked to the Toronto Raptors in most mock drafts, has been Devin Carter. Again, 20% odds to the Toronto Raptors potentially land him in this year's NBA draft. And then right behind him, I just made a video on him a couple days ago, to Jane Salon, the French guy that a lot of people sort of said the Raptors had no chance of getting because there's rumors he might go into the top 10 picks. He's a very raw prospect, but with extremely high upside. That's not who this video is about. And if you want more details onto Jane Salon, then basically check out that last video that I sort of made, because if he's available at number 19, there's no world where Masai Ujiri is just going to be able to sort of not select this man. But basically, there's other guys laid here. So Jared McCain, Evis Missy, as well as Kyle Filipowski. So again, interesting pieces, a couple centers, a guard, but Devin Carter's the guy I really want to sort of dive into in this video in particular for the number 19th overall pick. I think there's more of a steal coming in terms of draft range at number 31, but Devin Carter's an interesting sort of piece, watching his highlight tapes and watching the impact that he could sort of have. Again, he's a point guard, a junior, so 22 years old, not young by any means, but a guy that, again, projected to go to the Toronto Raptors in this mock draft as well. 6'4" at the guard position, close, 193 pounds. And looking at his stats, he is a very interesting player. Again, 20 points per game, not a lot of assists, 3.6 assists, not bad by any means, but a really just gritty player out there on the court. Averaged 9 rebounds at 6'4", 6'3 and a half, averaged 9 rebounds per game, 2 steals, 1 block, is a very, very strong defender. Again, free throw shooting, 75%, not bad. 37% from behind the three-point line. So a guy that is an absolutely grit master, a hustler, a dog out there on the basketball court. Also projects to be a very solid three-point shooter, free throw shooter, all those types of things. He would be a guy at number 19 that I would be very intrigued to bring in. Obviously, the Toronto Raptors are loaded at the guard position right now. RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Scott Barnes can kind of play guard, but even guys like Grady Dick, Gary Trent Jr., if he's coming back, there's a lot of guys that play guard right now for the Toronto Raptors. CJ Carden, one of our two-way players. But frankly, we don't really have an established backup point guard for this team here now at this point. No one that we can guarantee going into next season is a legitimate backup PG for this roster. So, the Raptors aren't in a position to really be drafting for need or anything like that. I think if Devin Carter is a guy that's available at number 19, again, if there's no other players sort of out there on the market that are out there in the draft that you think has potentially higher upside, then he would be a very, very nice selection. The Raptors really can use guys that bring the energy, bring the hustle on the defensive end, are capable three-point shooters, and even if they're a little bit older for their draft age, this guy fits more so the Scotty Barnes timeline than a 19-year-old would. He'd be able to sort of come in, be a bit more polished, and kind of exactly is a positional need for the Toronto Raptors anyways, even if it's not like star potential upside. But, Carter, 9 rebounds per night is pretty insane and brings the hustle, brings the energy. So he'd be a draft pick I'd be fairly excited about. But also, before we dive into the potential steal, I do want to take a look at Zach Edey, because he's a guy that's projected to potentially land around pick number 26. There's a 30% chance, apparently, that Zach Edey ends up going number 26 to the Washington Wizards, who could potentially use a center for their squad. And again, that's sort of 7 selections behind where the Toronto Raptors are drafting. Obviously, a lot of people are looking at number 19th pick and saying, hey, Zach Edey's available. Why not draft the 7'4" center that could come in, have a serious impact, been impressing himself at the NBA Draft Combine this year. So, again, I'm definitely not going to complain if we end up landing Zach Edey. Canadian homegrown talent, one of the best players in college basketball this previous season. I'd be pretty amped to land Zach Edey with any of these draft picks, but there are other options. There are interesting players around this sort of draft range, which the Raptors do have to take into serious consideration in terms of what style of pieces would best fit around our core group, even though you're not drafting for fit, but has the best sort of chance of having high upside, high potential. So that's sort of those draft selections. It's more focused around the number 19th pick, but where the Toronto Raptors, I think, could be getting a potential steal, at least in terms of these odds, in terms of players that are landing in different places, and that's with this number 31 overall selection. And I snuck it in there. But basically, again, Bobby Kintman is player, Ryan Dunn, Tyler Kolek. Looked at some of these dudes, but Kel'el Ware having 11% odds of landing to the Toronto Raptors at pick number 31. I don't care that he's not like the favorite. I don't care that there's the highest probability. Again, other teams could very well select him earlier at the spot, but the fact that there's a legitimate projection that in the second round, we could get a potential high upside guy like Kel'el Ware just has me amped, has me excited, has me pumped up, because this guy, there's been questions about his motor. There's been questions about, the energy, passion, all that type of stuff, getting lost on the defensive end. But this dude is an athlete, a very strong athlete. I'll take a look. We'll break down his projections in terms of stuff like that. Well, we're 7'1", plays the center position, played for Indiana last year, is only 20 years old, and, doesn't foul on the defensive end, but is an elite three-point shooter. He's a guy that the advanced stats, they don't love him right now, but he is a raw potential prospect. And for Indiana last season, averaged 16 points per game, close to 2 blocks per night, 0.6 steals. I'm looking at the wrong stats there. Not much of a passer, but 10 rebounds per game. The free throw shooting is a bit of a concern, considering the fact he's a 42% three-point shooter, but 63% behind the free throw line, so that's a little bit of a concern. But as a second-round pick, as a second-round draft selection, to get a guy that's an athlete that can knock down threes, that projects to be a shot blocker as well, right? 7'1". I mean, that's a guy you have to take a flyer on. That's a guy that you have to sort of bring into your system, take a chance on the Toronto Raptors, because there's a legitimate possibility that he's a proper bust. It's not a bust when it's a second-round pick or a late-round draft pick. I mean, those are just sort of to be expected. It's hit or miss when you're in this range of the NBA draft. So there's a world of a possibility. Certainly a low motor, sort of not the most efficient defender, in terms of the advanced stats, efficient defender. The advanced stats don't love his sort of defensive prowess right now in college. I get all that. But 7'1", uber athlete, blocks shots, and knocks down threes. The Raptors need a center. They need sort of to build up, their anchor at the 5 spot. I mean, we have Kelly Olynyk, we have Jakob Poeltl, but losing Christian Koloko sort of hurt the timeline in terms of young guys that could potentially develop into that center position. I mean, Kel'el Ware, as a second-round pick, I would just love him to fall to the Toronto Raptors here now at this point. So I think that could be a potential steal for the Toronto Raptors here now in this one. But let me know what you guys think out of all the prospects that could potentially fall in the Toronto Raptors range. Let me know who you're most excited about in the comment section down below. But you guys have best to make it this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.